our intention, our thoughts, our actions, which are an indicator of what we stand for, what we're voting for, what we're choosing, that brings about our experience. We are really all creators. Everyone has a crucial, important role in creation expressing itself.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. This show is all about helping you be more fit and healthy in mind, body, and spirit, as well as harmonize your masculine and feminine energy, tap into your intuition, your true source of power, and awaken your authentic self. You know, you've heard me talk a lot about how important it is that we think holistically in our lives and consider our entire environment and how that's affecting the inside and outside of ourselves. From everything to the food we eat, to the fresh air we breathe, to the comfort and situation in our home and living condition, to the people that are in our lives and we expose ourselves to. All of these things are super important and directly affect our experience, again, both inside and out. That's why I am so thrilled to share with you this very important guest on my show today, Ross Newkirk. Let me just say, his products have changed my life. Now listen, my friend, I don't say that lightly. You know, I've been in this field over 3 decades. I get asked all the time to promote things or have things on my show. And out of integrity, I will only endorse and promote things that not only I've used personally, but also love. That's why I've put certain products on my website. Have you seen my website, by the way? You might want to take a quick jump over there, amyfournier.com. and go to the recommended products, and there's all the things there that I use pretty much every day, and I couldn't add Ross's products to my website fast enough. You will hear the whole story in the episode of what the experience was like, not only for me, but other people in my life that have experienced his products. It completely was a game changer, and I just can't recommend his stuff highly enough. And you know, for that matter, if you want to support me and my show, the best way to do that is to take 2 seconds and leave a review. They really are like gold in the podcast world. And subscribe too, so you can pick the shows you want to listen to, and there's always sharing them with a friend. So thank you so very much. So my new friend, Ross Newkirk, is an inventor who has worked on cutting-edge conscious raising technologies based on information fields for over 15 years. He worked for countless hours alongside his father, Mark Newkirk, who was a world-class scientist and prolific inventor. Actually, his dad invented himself over 100 U.S. patents and over 900 foreign patents. Hello! Oh, how many patents have you done lately? Me, none either. Crazy. Ross is currently the founder and president of Conscious Technologies, LLC, and has created, built, and brought to market a handful of major technologies that, listen to this now, produce a coherent space for someone to reconnect with their higher self, as well as a line of EMF harmonizing technologies that reverse the incoherent man-made EMFs, which are electromagnetic fields. Now, what we're talking about here is like your cell phone, your computer, the satellites in the sky that we can't see. You can't feel and touch these frequencies, but they're zapping us all the time and screwing up your hormones, your mood, your neurotransmitters. They're screwing up your sleep. They're giving you anxiety. So they're invisible but quite deadly. And I'm not being too dramatic when I say that. So Ross's technologies help to mitigate that and help create and maintain the harmony in the body in our modern world while we're exposed to all these things. Because, you know, let's be honest, no one wants to throw away their cell phone, right? And heck, I wouldn't be with you today, right now, if I didn't have technology to connect with you. So it's not that it's a bad thing. We just have to learn what it's doing so we know how to get the best out of it and be healthy and happy at the same time. So Ross is also the author of the book Unsubscribe, a story of one man's profound discovery, and he has spent numerous years as a former personal assistant to best-selling author Dr. Spencer Johnson. This guy was the author of Who Moved My Cheese, The 1 Minute Manager, and Out of the Maze. I'm sure you probably heard of one of those books. Ross sits on the board of the Lightfield Foundation, a nonprofit foundation that his father, Mark, started. Ross is a certified Reiki practitioner, and in his free time loves to hike, swim, cold plunge, and spend time with his family, like his lovely wife, Heather, who I have yet to meet, but I really look forward to meeting her. You know, it's just so beautiful when you connect with people in this big, wide world and they're aligned with you, right? That's probably why you're here with me right now. In some way, we're aligned, and I'm super grateful that you're here. So in this episode, we talk about what exactly is coherence and why we need help restoring it. A productive, healthy use and expression of technology. Ross talks about the importance and difference between discernment and resonance. We talk about the role of geometry in coherence, the importance of creating a coherent environment. And then we get into my baby, the Core Harmonizer. This thing has changed my life. We have a great discussion about that, and I give you my personal story and, again, how much it's meant to me and what happened to me when I first used it. We get into crystals and Vogel Cut crystals in particular, and why not all crystals are made the same, just like food or anything else for that matter, and some really key things you need to know about working with these little magical minerals called crystals. We also talk about how Ross created the technology and how he gets downloads from the divine for these amazing products. And Ross shares the pain of the sudden loss of both of his parents, whom he was very close with, and how, in fact, that ultimately became a blessing. Very inspiring and touching story. Ross shares some encouraging thoughts and tips for getting answers when we're looking for help and how he finds solutions. And how to rewrite history. Haha, so cool. So look, I want to share with you too, super important, if you want to get some of these products yourself, Ross and his team have generously agreed to provide it for a discount with you. All you have to do is either go to my e-store, amyfournier.com, and use the link there under Core Harmonizers, Conscious Technology, or the Vogel Crystals, so depending what you want. And use that link there on my website. And you can also enter the coupon code FitAmyTV10 at checkout. Doesn't matter about the uppercase, lowercase, but FitAmyTV10 at checkout, and you will get a discount. I promise you will be happy. And I want to know, okay? I want to hear about it. Lastly, if this episode is of interest to you, these type of topics, you might also want to check out episodes 16 on creating harmony and healing with Mother Earth and crystals with Orgone energy and pyramids with my friend Michelle Hood, and episode 28, unusual but amazing crystals you probably don't know about but should, with Andrea Sanchez, and episode 73, your personal soundtrack for transformation and the power of sound with the one and only Ian Morris. And I've got lots more shows coming up on sound therapy because I've been studying it intensely and I am an avid fan of how powerful it is. So hey, let's join my new friend Ross Newkirk. Enjoy. And welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. Today, my guest is Ross Newkirk. Ross, you have quite an amazing job. Wow, you help us connect to higher consciousness. Not a small feat, I must say.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm grateful to be here and share with your audience.
What a story. I mean, wow. I mean, your childhood, your upbringing with your amazing parents, it was the perfect breeding ground for you to be doing this dharma, this soul work in the world for sure. would you like to just give us a little snippet as to your upbringing with your amazing parents? And gosh, I read your father has like 1,000 patents that before he passed away, at 900 in Europe and another 100 in America. And please give us a background on your amazing upbringing.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I was fortunate and grateful to have the opportunity to grow up in a family where we used meditation, prayer, and actually shifted our thought in alignment to what you would want to experience, when you encountered physical issues or traumas or accidents or whatever. And it was just such an amazing experience, and sort of laid the foundation for our later work, for my family's later work in raising coherence and using technology to be able to help facilitate that by creating coherent environments.
All right, so let's define some terms for our audience so we're all on the same page. So let's start with what would you say coherence is, and why do we need stuff to help us create more coherence in our lives?
Yeah, it's a great question. Coherence is really about order and harmony in our experience. And if we can create order and harmony, we end up shifting our experience to better align with what, makes us feel better, what supports us, what motivates us and drives us, really.
And why would we need things to help us restore coherence?
We live in a world where there are so many distractions, and we have become disconnected really as a species and civilization, where nowadays a lot of us feel like we're separate and alone. People can be living in a big city and they don't know their neighbors and they feel alone. But in fact, the truth of the matter is we are all interconnected. We are all part of a whole. And you might say, well, can you give an example of that? And I like to point to the flock of birds, where flock of birds, different species than the human race, but the flock of birds, they're flying, hundreds, thousands of these birds. I used to live in Delaware, and there would be these, we were in the flyway, and for about a half an hour, certain times of the year, there would be this black river of the same species bird flying above you, for probably, a couple 100 feet wide, and it would last, half hour sometimes. And when these birds would fly, if you clapped your hands, the flock would sometimes split and come back together. But none of the birds were running into each other. They weren't like, oh, you go this way, I go that way. They were in alignment and coherence with each other. And we see this in schools of fish too, where you see a school of fish and they're all, pretty much equally spaced and they're moving. And that's an example of one consciousness being expressed. And so, we can use technologies that have come through from, higher levels of awareness, other dimensions, if you want to go there as well. And you can use that to create a coherent space. And in that coherence, we start to reconnect to higher levels of awareness and consciousness, which have always been there, but they've just been disconnected. So we are capable, all of us are capable of remarkable things, self-healing capabilities, intuitive capabilities, and perceptive capabilities, and so much more. It's just there's been a disconnect. So when you plug that little wire back in, and you're reconnected and you realize you have new abilities, you have new access to information that otherwise in a lower vibrational state, one of fear, anger, sadness, guilt, all that, those tools tend not to be available.
Yeah, and what I love about your products are, with so many things which we're going to talk about, is that your products are a positive healthy, productive way of using modern technology to help us, as opposed to so many ways that we have technology now kind of destroying the natural coherence
Mm-hmm.
of things, you know? For example, one of the ways that we get out of coherence is because of all the artificial electromagnetic rays, like 5G and all the technology, right? And how that's deregulating everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of your products is it's helping to restore it, as opposed to being modern technology that's destroying it. So I love, like, hey, you know, technology is not bad. It's just we have to learn, like, first of all, limits, right? And we have to learn ramifications and long-term ramifications and how it's affecting things that maybe we can't see and all that. But I just love how your technology is a solution, and to how do we stay in the modern world, but still be in an optimal state and still feel good, you know, and help ourselves stay in that level of vibration.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, like you said, we're living in this technological world, which affords us lots of different capabilities and opportunities, some of which have been deemed as, good and useful and helpful, and others very addictive, like our cell phones, a lot of, young kids especially, have been hooked on their phones. And if you take their cell phone away, they act very irrational, or if they lose their cell phone, very irrational. So some of these technologies are addictive. There's always good, when you look for it, I think, and, there's goodness all around us. And so one of the things that I appreciate about cell phones is it allows us to stay interconnected with people. And I think it's really a teaching tool, because when you realize that at your fingertips, with the press of a couple buttons, and even if you spell the word wrong, you can get access to information anywhere on the planet about any subject matter. Now, there are misinformation, that will also appear on your screen, and you have to be able to sort through it. But there's a couple things there. I think one is it's really teaching us, although almost all of us are missing this, but I think it has the opportunity to teach us about omniscience. And omniscience is all-knowing, where we have the ability to access information about any subject matter, at any time, anywhere on the planet. And this has been proven and demonstrated with remote viewers, where they are able to, the US military had a program, I think it started back in the 70s, and I have been trained on remote viewing, and so was my father, where we took a class that was given by one of these professional remote viewers that had worked for the military for many years. And he realized that we have the ability to access any amount of information, and it's only our minds that get in the way of the accuracy of that information. And so remote viewing, you can look it up, it's pretty amazing to realize that you can access any information all over the planet. So I think cell phones, to me, are sort of potentially, as more and more people start to understand this, is a opportunity to realize that you have access to all sorts of information, which can, when used appropriately, can, educate you in subject matters that otherwise you wouldn't be able to, educate yourself on. And, I think it also gives us the opportunity to turn on discernment, because I think without discernment, you won't be able to tell what information is correct and not. And that's where resonance comes into play, where we have to start to raise our vibration. And we can talk about that. And I know you have, your whole show is about raising vibration. So you have lots of techniques and so forth that would help with that. But as we raise our vibration, you start to realize that you have an internal compass needle that can direct you as to what information is correct and what information is not correct or not correct for you. And so I think that, is also, discernment is also an important thing that I think we're going to move into as a species in order for our survival, really, and being able to thrive.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is that, and I totally agree, by the way, is that, the discernment, the ability to discern between what is the best course to take for you, what is coming from your higher self, your loving heart, your knowledge, and what is coming from outside programming or maybe ulterior motives or manipulation or whatever it may be, to be able to have discretion to know the difference. Is that what I'm hearing you say? We
Yeah,
need to
no, you're
develop
absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely.
So how would you say we develop that, Ross? Because it's murky. It's murky.
Yeah.
It's swimming in muddy water. Like, what's me? What's not me? How do we know? Do you have tactics for developing your
I
own?
think there's a couple different stepping stones for discernment as well, because one, we have the ability innate within us where we have a fear response, where if we feel like this intense fear coming over us, maybe it can be an indicator not to do something, not to step out in the street in the dark, or not to, go with that particular taxi driver, or whatever, the case may be. So we have an internal fear response that sometimes can activate our discernment. But what I've found is as one, and I've seen this for others, I've seen, evidence, for myself in this direction as well too. But as I start to follow my joy compass needle, where I'm doing things not out of obligation. Now we always have, some things that we feel obligated to, but following more and more of what really brings me joy in life, and following that has led me to the ability to start to decipher information and interpret things differently. So as you do more and more of what your inner song is, and we all have a song to sing, and they're all equally important. And a lot of us spend most of our lives looking for this song, what's our purpose in life? That's one of the biggest questions. But as we take steps in that direction, even if we don't know what that is, but based on like what makes us feel good, what makes you feel good from a spiritual, level, from a happiness standpoint, moving in that direction starts to put you in a different vibrational state than anger, frustration, and fear. And so as we start to move in that direction of love, kindness, and you can start wherever you are, you may have lost your loved one, you may have, lost your job, whatever, but you always have an opportunity to express kindness, goodness, gentleness, love, and as we start to move more out of the head and into the heart, that, which by the way, which you may be aware of, there's, they found brain cells, in the heart, and the heart is known for, acting like a powerful mechanism for direction and thought and so forth. So if we start to move out of the head into the heart, that also gives us new tools to this toolbox, which when we're in lower states of awareness, consciousness, frustration, sadness, you don't have access to this toolbox. So you say like, oh, it doesn't exist. Well, that you're right. It doesn't exist for you in that state. And I've been there many times, there's no judgment here. We're all working together, trying to help each other on the planet here. But if you can move into higher frequency bands, like a child, just that innocence, that love, that joy, they're in the present moment, do more of that. Sometimes even when you're not trying and you're just going about your day, you're smelling a flower, or you're walking outside, walking your dog, all of a sudden thoughts will start to pop in your mind, ideas, and some of those ideas are going to help direct you in what you need to do next, and what will bring you a greater sense of purpose and joy. So I think moving into that frequency band is an important one.
I love everything you just said, and there was a lot there. And I will go ahead and confirm that, yes, there's something that we know of as the heart brain, and that we have three brains. We have the brain, the mind brain between our ears. We now know that the heart has its own independent networking system of a brain, and it actually communicates more to the body than the brain between our ears does. And there's more information that goes north from the heart up to the brain than from the brain down in the heart. And then, of course, we have the gut brain, the enteric nervous system, that over 80% of our immune system is located in the gut. It's called the GALT, the gut activated lymphatic tissue that's in your gut. So we know we have at least 3 brains, and every cell is thought to have its own brain that independent. And that's just a way of thinking of intelligence, right? Our cells are intelligent. So what you're seeing is that we need to find ways in our life to get on the frequency that we want to be, feel, and have. So, and to me, that's what resonance is what I'm hearing you say is ultimately, we want to be on that joyful, loving, open, receptive, inclusive, expansive frequency, because that's the frequency of the divine. That's the frequency of creation and harmony and all that. And to do that, follow the things that bring you joy. I'm just trying to summarize what I'm hearing you say. And this is where your products come in, because I feel like so much in our current lifestyle doesn't really lend itself to everything I just said. So how can we utilize tools and techniques and practices and habits that will help us get in that state? I know that's how I've used your products, and I know we're going to get into that because, we're all stressed, we all have responsibilities, we all have things. And how do I get in that state myself so I can be the energy that I want to help cultivate in the world? And I know your products help me do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. It ends up that coherence is created through geometries. Geometries give off a coherent environment, the Platonic solids, the Great Pyramid, different sacred shapes and symbols like the flower of life, Metatron's cube, all those, give off the Merkaba, they give off coherence. And so we were given the technology through downloads and dreams and so forth to create such technologies to help elevate a space. And when someone's in that environment or space, they have the opportunity, doesn't violate your free will, but they have the opportunity to reach higher states of awareness and understanding much more effortlessly. And it can bring them to activate. We've had people report that they've activated self-healing abilities, premonition abilities. We had, someone avoid a car accident because they started to develop premonitions, and they saw a car swerve in front of them before it happened, and they avoided a whole accident with their family in the car. And they attributed that to raising their vibration and frequency. So we've had so many, different stories between our, we have a nonprofit in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts called the Lightfield Foundation. And that was one of our biggest, physically biggest technologies that we built. It took a year and 2 months to build the basic structure, working 60 hours a week, my dad and I, and then other, contributors like my wife and my mom and other intuitive friends that, played key roles, in the development of the technology. But in that case, it looks like a giant sphere, and inside the sphere are 2 cubes and a star tetrahedron, which is like a triangle and another triangle, and it forms a star. And the individual is actually laying inside of that. So you're surrounded by nested geometries, and then you're listening to 432 hertz music, which is, it's tuned to a 432. That's what all the music is based off of, tuning that. And then 528 hertz music. So 432 is about coherence, awakening, and so forth. And 528 hertz music is about the frequency of love. And years ago, they used to tune the music to 432 hertz. And then we don't want to get into the whole.
Now it's like 440, right? Or 442.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
a little bit higher.
Yeah, and it actually brings people out of coherence and harmony. And so, but if we start to listen to 432 hertz music again, it will help raise our own frequency and those around them. So our technology utilizes that. So we have a core harmonizer, which is a hexagonal piece of technology that looks like a giant stool, but you don't sit on it. Very beautifully created and crafted out of quarter sawn wood, and it has a music player in there. And we're playing 432 and 528 hertz music through a Bose speaker in the bass. And then the music actually resonates up this geometric chamber, which is filled with all sorts of geometries within it, and copper components. And there's also light, specific Pantone color of green light that's emitted from it as well. And it resonates up through, and there's a Vogel cut crystal in there too that's amplifying and taking that information and acting like a transducer amplifier. And then there's copper cones, a series of 3, actually. It looks like 1, but there's actually 3 stacked and insulated from each other above that, and some other components and minerals and so forth in there. And the copper cones are actually the angle of the Great Pyramid, the internal angle of the Great Pyramid.
Oh, wow.
So you get this information of intention, light, and the music frequencies coming up through the top and forming this toroidal information field that just cascades down, sort of like what you might picture a waterfall doing, but on all sides and all areas. And it builds upon itself. It's self-replenishing, if you will. So it continues to build, and it actually imprints space. And you might say, well, how do you imprint space? Well, if you've ever, gone to the mall or something like that, and you're walking by someone, sometimes you'll feel someone and you'll be like, wow, they feel really good. Their energy feels really good. Well, that's an information field or a thought field, an intention field given off. Or if you feel uneasy about someone, that's also an information field. So you can create a coherent information field, and you can also use it to imprint space, with as well. And so that's what we're doing, is we're providing a coherent environment. And when the individual's in that environment, whether they're in the Lightfield unit, we have a Cohere meditation mat. We have the core harmonizer. We have the quantum flow unit as well. All of them do different things, but they're all based in information fields. Some are more about the physical being, creating coherence. Others are about impacting space, which is what the core harmonizer is doing. And then we have the quantum flow, which enables you to go deep into your unconscious, belief systems, connect to higher levels of awareness, and start to jettison things that don't belong and don't serve you. You can be asleep, awake while you're doing it. It doesn't matter. But when you're in that environment, some pretty spectacular things have occurred over the years, from all sorts of different people, whether it's, letting go of abuse or anger or hate or sadness or loss. People have communicated with lost loved ones, and people have gotten inspirational ideas for new music. People have been able to work through different issues in their lives. And so pretty much anything is possible. Anything beyond your wildest dreams is possible when we start to raise our vibration and levels of awareness and coherence. But the neat thing is as you're doing it, your higher self is very much involved in this process, and your higher self would never do anything to harm you. So there's no side effects. And it also wouldn't do anything. It would also view harm as bringing you to a point of just beyond your current present belief system, where it would just cause you to make backward steps in your spiritual development and growth and awareness and self-empowerment. So it's not going to stretch you beyond that. So that's why you can have someone that is an amazing energy healer, goes through or experiences the technology, they have an amazing session for them. The next guy that comes through, they're just starting off on this path. And if they did the same kind of session, it would just be way too much. So they'll have like a little session for them. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, I could feel a little, tingling in my hands. And it's like, well, you actually did that because we're not throwing in, any kind of waveforms. We're creating a coherent, space. So there's no, three-dimensional, vibrating tables or anything. That's all you. That's your frequency. That's your vibration that you're feeling, and you're being activated. So as my father, Mark Newkirk, used to say, these are really designed as teaching tools, because the most amazing piece of technology actually lies within each one of us. And so this is just a teaching tool to help remember and reconnect with your higher self. Yeah.
Yeah, access. Well, let me just share with everybody that, as most people know, I have been in the holistic health fitness industry for over 30 years. I've been to a lot of trade shows. I've been to a lot of conventions. I've worked with a lot of experts. I've seen a lot of products. I've seen a lot of technology, a lot of, snake salesmen and all this stuff that works, stuff that doesn't work, and all the bells and whistles. And plus, in the last few years in particular, I have been doing a deep dive into sound therapy, sound healing, because I am a believer. I've been taking courses and studying just voraciously everything I can get my hands on. I have drums and crystal healing bowls, 2 sets of tuning forks, rattles. I bought a flute. I'm teaching myself how to play flute. And I've been teaching yoga for 20 years, so the power of music. Plus, I'm a dance instructor, so music is something that lives in my soul. And what I'm getting at is I have a lot of experience in this area. And when Paul Chek recommended I get your core harmonizer, who most people know is my very good friend and mentor, and I had to plug it into the wall. And like you said, it's kind of like a really big, beautiful wooden hand-carved wooden stool, if you will. Like it's just something that goes on the floor. And when I plugged it in, I had to get down on the floor to plug it in. And that's all you have to do is plug it in. Okay, it's not like some big setup. I hadn't even stood up yet from bending over to plug it in, and I immediately felt inside my body something shift.
Wow.
When the music started playing, I just felt something immediately. So I don't want to get too much into that because I just, I'm still not really sure what it was, but something changed, and I stopped and was like, okay, this is different. Like something's already happening. And then I proceeded to play it all the time, like 24 hours. And everybody knows I love animals and nature. And I love my birds and my bunnies and my chipmunks and my dog and all this stuff. So every morning I do my prayers and I connect and I put on my core harmonizer and I open all my doors and windows, and it's like wild kingdom around here. All the birds come flying, the bunnies come out of the bushes, the animals gravitate toward it, my dog takes a nap. And then the icing on the cake, Ross, was last weekend. My niece, my little 8-year-old niece was visiting me because I have her most weekends, and she hadn't seen it yet. And, of course, I plug it in because I miss it when I'm gone. Can't wait to get home and plug it back in because it just makes me feel good. And I plugged it in, and she immediately looked at me and said, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's my core harmonizer. Don't you like it? Isn't it pretty?" And she was just kind of like really quiet. And she was like, "Yeah." And I was trying to explain to her what it does and why it works. And I showed her the lights, and I showed her the geometry, how it's like a chamber. It reminds me, just for the listeners, kind of like, how you experience music inside a church or a cathedral. Because of the structure of the geometry, it changes the vibrational body experience of hearing and feeling the music. Well, this is what the technology of the core harmonizer does. Because of the structure, it changes the resonance of the music itself. And I think that's why I felt it so strongly, viscerally in my body. And my niece felt it too. And it also has the beautiful pattern of flower of life on top of it, super pretty, engraved in the top. It has the colored lights. It's just a beautiful piece of art that makes the most gorgeous sound that is so peaceful and relaxing. I play it in the background. But to finish my story, my niece left the room, and she comes back with a towel, and she laid it on the floor. Now, she's 8 years old. She laid it on the floor in front of the harmonizer and wanted to just like lay there and just be as close to it as possible. If she could have, Ross, she would have climbed inside it. And then she said to me, can I get one? Can Daddy and I have one? And everybody should have one of these in their home. And this is out of the mouth of babes, right? And I'm like, I agree with you, honey. I'm like, I'm going to do my best to get it out there because it's truly changed my life. And as I said in the introduction, and I say all the time on my social media, this is why I put it on my e-store. This is why I'm trying to get you out there, Ross, because this is truly the real deal, everybody. And if I had a handful of items in my life that have significantly changed the quality and the joy of my life, this is one of them.
Wow.
And I'm going to go on the record and say that. So let me just officially thank you and your team and the divine wisdom downloaded to you how to create this amazing thing. And that just thank you. You have truly changed and enhanced the quality and enjoyment of my life. And I really hope people try it as well. Because like my niece said, everybody should have one. The world would be a happier, more balanced, peaceful place.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate that. And it's such a pleasure and joy. Appreciate it.
I do too. So that's the core harmonizer. Now we have to talk about the amazing crystal. Now, if you are on my YouTube channel, which is Awakening Aphrodite podcast, FitAmyTV, you'll see this gorgeous quartz. It's a citrine quartz, so it has a little tint of green. And Ross, you're going to explain all this. It's a master Vogel Cut Crystal. So you need to please tell everybody what this is, why the Vogel is unique and superior, and particularly probably what they need to know about crystals these days, because it seems like everybody and their brother is getting essential oils and crystals, right? Like why is the Vogel unique and superior?
Yeah. So Marcel Vogel was an amazing scientist, and he worked for IBM. And he was one of the lead scientists at IBM in many different areas. And he had lots of patents that he held through IBM. And he ended up getting involved in with Cleve Baxter, who wrote the Secret Life of Plants, and he studied. He was introduced to that, and he thought, well, geez, what a bunch of hokum! This must be communicating with plants. And it was actually through his plant research he was able to validate and create the Vogel Cut Crystal, which is a specific cut of crystal. It's quartz, very clear quartz crystal. Sometimes there's little wisps or inclusions or something like that, but generally they're very clear. And the larger end of the crystal is the receiving end, known as the female end. And that cut is modeled in many ways after the Great Pyramid, angle of the Great Pyramid. But that cut specifically has a resonance to it, where he found that this specific cut crystal cut in a certain way where it actually has to be the growth angle of the quartz itself. You can't just start taking a big hunk of quartz and cutting crystals out of it. It has to be aligned with the axis of growth axis of the quartz. And, also intention, is involved. Accuracy, is key as well. And these crystals are cut and act as amplifiers. And he was able to, originally he realized that crystals were all over the place, in terms of like their ability to store information and so forth. But with this specific cut, it was in resonance with water, actually. And individuals are comprised mostly of water. And water is programmable. Many of you have heard of Emoto's work with the water crystals, where he was able to send love and flash freeze water droplets, and they would turn into beautiful geometric shapes and basically look like snowflakes, but they're beautifully designed. And then you would write like hate or a bad word on it and freeze it, and it would be distorted and so forth. He was able to use this specific cut of crystal to act as an amplifier of intention and thought. And so he used the plants as a means to learn how to be able to program the crystal. And he found that it came down to intention and also, in this case, breath work. So he would hold up the crystal and he would put his fingers onto opposing sides of it, and it didn't matter if it was a 13-sided or a 12-sided, basically opposite sides. And you would hold you would first clear the crystal, and there's a process for that. But then after you clear the crystal, you would literally send it intention, whatever you wanted, universal coherence and love, gratitude, protection, whatever you want, and then you would blow out through your nose, actually, a sharp, firm breath, and that would program those two sides. And then you would rotate the crystal to the next two sides and forth and so forth, and do that same procedure until all sides were programmed. And he was able to see, by hooking up polygraph machines, lie detectors to the plants, that when he had like a thought, about the plant, if he just sort of breathed on it, or had the thought, the plant didn't react nearly to the degree when he blew the air out of his nose, with his intention and thought. And so that is how he came up with the methodology or dressing mechanism for being able to program the crystal. But crystals are amazing amplifiers when cut right and used right. Lots of energy, workers use crystals in all different forms and fashions. Some are much more efficient as amplifiers than others. We actually use Vogel Cut crystals in most of our all of our major technologies. And we were having trouble getting the crystals from the two main sources out there. There was a 8 to 10 month waiting list, generally from these two individuals that Marcel Vogel himself taught, and they couldn't supply us in the quantity that we needed. So we had to, through synchronicity and alignment and grace, we were able to connect with a crystal cutter who's an amazing guy, and he's not as well known. And so we were able to connect with him, so we don't share information about him, because we use him to cut for all of our technologies. And we order a lot of crystals. So out of that, we decided, well, why not start vogelcutcrystal.com, which you can find out on Amy's site, learn more about. And so we decided to start to offer them to individuals. So we have a smaller supply of crystals that we're able to cut in addition to the ones that we put in our technologies to use for healers and so forth. And my wife, actually, right now, she does energy work with crystals and cord cutting and clearings and stuff like that. And she's actually out right now she just got back, I think, from doing a clearing today. So they're very useful tools as amplifiers.
And this is the thing I want to share too, because this is the second thing that I am grateful for getting from you. In addition to the Core Harmonizer, is my gorgeous, gorgeous quartz Vogel Cut Crystal. Because like music therapy and music, I have used music my whole life. And a lot of people, it's very vogue right now, using music. And crystals are the same way. You see them in every shop. You can get them at Walmart, for God's sake. Obviously, Amazon,
Yeah.
yoga studios, right? But the thing that people don't understand is, just like nutrition and food and everything else, the source, the processing, all of that, and the intention, as you mentioned, are paramount to not only the effectiveness, but the safety. Because unfortunately nowadays, a lot of crystals, and even the ones that claim to be Vogel cut, which is like the, it's the Mercedes creme de la creme of the cut, because the cutting of the crystal is essential. Most crystals are heated, they're irradiated, they're dyed, and all of these things, people have to understand, affect the potency and the safety, effectiveness of the crystal. It's like people who say, well, I was told to take vitamin C, so I got some at, Costco or whatever, and it didn't help me. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, source is everything. So these Vogel crystals are, not only are they absolutely gorgeous, but what I learned from you, Ross, is that, that, like you said, the precision of the cut, that with the master cutter respects the line of growth of the crystal. Because people have to understand, what is a crystal? Crystal is mineral rock from the earth. It's a living creature. It's known to have its own consciousness, which is why you can program it or get information from it, why it's an amplifier. And what we mean by that is it can increase energy. It's like turning up the volume of an intention. So it's a living thing that you can't, just like a living thing, you can't just heat it, irradiate it, put pesticides on her and, just cut it any old way and expect it to be optimally functioning. And Rudolf Steiner actually said that crystals are the sensory organs of the angelic realm.
Wow.
And so there you go for consciousness, because the higher realms of consciousness aren't oscillating at a physical plane, right? Like we are. So how do they express themselves and kind of relate to us, on this level? And that's the theory that the crystals, that's what they are. They're crystallized thought forms. They're crystallized energy that I'm tapping it. Like you can feel it, you can touch it. It's matter. And that's why it matters, like it matters that not only is it quality, but, and how it's handled, and that it's cleared. I'll add too, that I've also read that the Romans had said that, the sins of the owner are held on the crystal, and that, it's important, the energy of the environment, the crystals around, they're programmed, they have memory, they carry the information. So the first thing you got to do when you buy a crystal is wash it properly and then cleanse it regularly, because it picks up energy and will hold on to it. So do you want to expand on any of that? I just threw a lot at you, but also please, if you could share your thoughts on cleansing, because I really want to make sure people, I'm sure almost everybody listening at home has some sort of crystal that they know this needs to be cleansed regularly.
Yeah. One of the things that Marcel, Vogel, talked about was just the simplicity for, clearing a crystal. And his method was holding the crystal with, if you're right-handed, dominant hand, you'll take your pointer finger and thumb and grab the crystal in the middle, and your other hand will be on the two tips, and you'll have the larger end down and the narrower end up. Yeah, just like Amy has there. And to clear it, the way I do it is I just picture like static, like just total, like white, just clear, removing anything, and then I blow through my nose, a sharp, nostril breath, exhale, if you will. And then I rotate the crystal to the next side and do the same thing. Just hold that, like just stillness, and then bam, go through that method. And then I do the same similar method for programming it. Now, some people say you can just do that once with the crystal. You don't have to do every single facet to clear. But I for me, mentally, it just feels better to clear it, 2 sides at a time. So if it's a 12-sided, I do it 6 times and rotate it. Some people, do sun clearing and, salt, water and so forth. According to Marcel, that isn't really needed. But I think what's really important is a crystal, it ends up being an extension of you, an amplifier of you. So whatever is in your, desire and belief system, is what you should do. For clearing it. And so some people need and want more of a process for doing that. And I think that also can add to it greatly. For instance, when I program the crystals for our technologies, I often sit out in a hammock or outside barefoot on the ground. And I first set the crystal directly on the ground just so it can pick up the earth energy. And so, set it on grass or, dirt if I'm very careful so I don't chip it on a rock or anything, but just grass is ideal. And I just set it there for a minute. And I love doing it on a sunny day, but you can do it on a cloudy one too, because you are the light. Light is always shining. And then I pick it up and I program it. And when I do that, because we really live in a feeling universe, not just a repetition universe. And so what I do is I actually feel that frequency just like rolling up through me, not from me, because from, tends to deplete and age healers and so forth. But if you allow it to go through you, it energizes you and it gets the ego out of the way. So I stand, I sit there, barefoot on the ground, or if it's winter, I do this outside, even in the winter in the snow, I'll put, take off my glove or whatever and put my hand in the snow. So I'm connected to, or sometimes I even am barefoot in the snow doing it. And, and I do this for every single technology we set out, I program them myself. And, and I just feel that frequency of gratitude, love, protection, all that kind of stuff. And I feel it just flowing like a river up through me. So I start to get these truth bumps, goosebumps, but, I like to call them the truth bumps. And I just start to feel that resonance going up through me. And it just feels so powerful. And so I don't have to necessarily, I'm sometimes saying the words, that we program them with, which is, love, gratitude, protection, universal, consciousness. And that frequency goes up through and I'm programming it. And I just feel really good. Sometimes if I don't want to be counting, depending on how many sides the crystal is, I'll just take a little piece of painter's tape and I'll just cut it off, just a tiny, piece, and I'll put it on one of the facets. So I'm not trying to get to my head as I'm programming, because you want to be in the heart space. So then I just rotate. And then when I feel the paper again, I'm like, oh, I'm done.
Excellent. Good idea.
Yeah.
I like low tech ideas. That I can do. Wow. That's so cool. So would you say that process you just shared with us is what you mean by intention? Because I know intention is kind of a theme we're talking about today, which is very common to, working on these higher frequencies. Is the purity of intention is paramount.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Our intention, our thoughts, our actions, which is sort of our indicator of what we stand for, what we're voting for, what we're choosing, that brings about our experience. And we are really all creators. And you're a part of creation. You're a part of source energy. And I almost think of it as like multiple, fingers, everyone has a crucial, important, role in one of the things that my father used to say is he said, the universe, Father, Mother, God, whatever you want to call source energy, the universe loves you so much that it treats you as if you're its only expression.
Wow.
That's how much we're loved. Now, it won't violate your free will, and it loves you so much it will allow you to have an experience of being separate and alone, and it doesn't judge you for that too. So the universe is created out of love. Its expression is love, and it allows for infinite expressions. Now there's ones that will resonate more with you and make you feel better and empowered, and there's ones that take away your power and make you feel separate and alone. And so we've all chosen both, whether in this lifetime or another, or we dabble in both sometimes. And so we have to choose like what really brings you the greatest satisfaction in life, what supports you. And as we choose, coherence and harmony and love and truth, we're in greater alignment with other things, beings, expressions that are doing the same. And you start to experience synchronicities, that will end up, blowing your mind, because you're like, oh my gosh, how did, this happen? It's like, well, it's because you're in alignment. You've tuned into a new channel where there's a resonant frequency, and now you're on that band of resonant frequency. When you drop below it and, you get angry or, whatever, now all of a sudden you're in a new frequency band, and you'll experience things that, will want to make you feel angrier or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to choose, where you want to tune yourself to. And it's amazing as I start to, realize the importance of watching our own thought. We have zillions of thoughts, every one of us a day. A lot of times the first thing people says is, oh gosh, this is not good because I have lots of negative thoughts. Well, we all do, but I think the important thing, which of course the documentary, The Secret, that aired many years ago, talked about, how thoughts create your experience. One of the things that I think is very important to remember is, and we should all, benefit greatly by doing this individually, is seeing a positive thought as extremely strong, and a negative thought is very weak. If we state that within our minds, our experiences, we start to create that too. So then, like, when a negative thought comes to you, you don't have to be, hitting yourself on the back. It's like, well, no, I've already determined, first of all, it's not my thought, because it's not one that I'm in alignment with, so I'm going to just let it pass, by. But also, because I have that thought, I don't need to necessarily pay a price for that. Now repetitive thinking in that manner will end up, manifesting, some of those things for, that we might not necessarily want. But the thoughts that are coming in, like, oh gosh, I'm going to be late. It's like, you can correct that in a moment, and so based on how you're feeling, how are you feeling? Like, oh gosh, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling, I have clenched fist. I'm feeling angry. That's your indicator to, make a change, as well.
All right. So in those two examples, just to make it practical and helpful for people, what would you suggest we do? So, okay, oh gosh, I'm going to be late. And you're noticing I'm feeling really anxious right now. I'm feeling very overwhelmed. I have so much to do and I'm running out of time, or whatever. What would you suggest people do to get out of those frequencies?
A lot of times I think doing just the opposite. And even if it feels like play or pretend at first, like, gosh, I'm going to be late. Well, maybe there's a reason I'm supposed to be late. Maybe you avoid, a situation that, wouldn't be beneficial to you, or, maybe it was a lesson for you to learn for next time, that you need to, be on time, because you missed something or whatever. But there's learning and opportunity, all paths have learning and opportunity. Sometimes we like to take the long way around, sometimes we take the shortcut, but just taking the positive outlook, like, gosh, oh my gosh, I'm late, I'm going to lose my job. and maybe there was a reason for that, and maybe it will end up blessing you and you won't see it until later. But it will unfold in such a manner, that reveals itself later. We've reached a time on the planet where the time between thought and manifestation, the distance, is much shorter. You probably notice. Yeah, you have a thought, and bam, there it is. You have a negative thought, someone's honking at you behind you, and it's like, wait, I didn't even do anything. So, no, you did. You had that thought, and which created a frequency, interaction. So
that's super interesting. Well, yeah, I would add, like, it's like, how many times have we all said, why do I keep doing this? Like with the late thing, like, oh, I'm pressing the clock again. And I like your suggestion that we can think of it as just at some point when we have time to catch our breath, to look back and think, what could I have done differently so I don't keep doing that? And then maybe you can look back on that situation and realize, oh, it's because I tried to do the 2-3 extra things to squeeze them in, and I shouldn't have done that, because then I would have been on time or whatever. So, how can we, it's I like that. It's a learning opportunity to just be more aware that we're recreating this all the time. Like, again, how many times do we say, I keep doing this, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, to break these patterns that we seem to be in this automatic replay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is not being hard on ourselves too, because we tend to be our worst critic, like, oh gosh, I burned, dinner or whatever. It's like, just look at it like, I was talking with my wife the other day about how, moving into a state of joy, like true childhood joy, where, you see a child and they're not caught up in what's going to happen in an hour from now. They're living in the present. They're grateful. They make mistakes, but they tend to let them go unless the parents, holds it over them and, programs them. You got to beat yourself up, kind of a thing. But, innately, I don't think we come into this experience wanting to punish ourselves. That's sort of, taught behavior, but we can also unteach it. It's just a program that's running in your system. And if you don't like the program, update your operating system, just click delete. It doesn't have to be a process. It doesn't have to be something to feel bad about. It could have come from a loved one, our great grandmother, or something that we felt so dear about, but they instilled some kind of program that's running within our thought, which, manifests in our experience, and we can let it go. We can send them love. And if they knew better, they would have, taught us better, so we don't have to hold anyone accountable or blame. It's all about learning, And so I think the biggest thing is not to be hard on ourselves. We've all made, huge mistakes in life, and, we all missed, huge opportunities, but guess what? There's so much more, and we need to live in the now and just let go.
Great advice. I'll add that you've had just such an amazing upbringing, such a blessed childhood of such loving parents that, for your father to say to you what you just shared with us about, that great spirit, the creator, it's like the creator created only you, like you are so loved more than you'll ever know. For your parent to tell you that is like, wow. Talk about making the child feel safe and seen and loved. How beautiful. Ross, what would you say is the number one thing, because both your parents have passed, that you learned from your father, and the number one thing you learned from your mother, because they were both so significant in your life?
Well, thank you. My mom, was someone that was just so joyful and forgiving and kind, beyond words. I think, she really, added a lot, of love to the family. That, that was her main gift, is just people really, really, truly loved her. She ran the Lightfield Foundation for many years. And people just really, really appreciated her. And so, definitely, her love and her joy. And for my dad, it was about knowledge. It was about understanding. It was about letting go of what we think, to be the case, having a more malleable mind, so you're not so rigid. So when something new enters into it and it questions everything that you've been taught, and you're like, your first instinct is to be like, that can't be, that's wrong. It's like, well, maybe in
True.
in a different state of being, it's actually correct information. So he helped me with using discernment. He helped me realize that you can create using your mind and receiving information and turn it into a reality. That was just a phenomenal experience, to see him do that. Both of my parents, they left instantly, and when they left the planet, and no one saw it coming. They were both in great health, and it was just like, they were gone. And from this reality, which of course, being two of my best friends, was very very hard and a lot to process. But through letting go some of the grief and focusing on what I gained rather than the loss, but really focused on the gain, I was like, geez, what a blessing it was to have them in my life for as long as I did. What a true blessing, rather than like, oh gosh, my son's not going to have grandparents and that kind of thing. Focus on the blessing. And as I did, it started to shift my vibrational state. And there were still tears, there was, sadness, all that kind of stuff, but I processed through it. And I started to realize that they were here, just in different forms. And also the expression.
You mean now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can communicate with them. Generally, it's in the dream state. My dad sends through technologies. My mom, has sent through comforting messages. When I'm in the technology, sometimes like the quantum flow or the light field, that experience, happens sometimes on the Coherence meditation mat even. But and then other times in the dream state, or I can feel their presence. There was it was only a few weeks ago, I was working through a challenge in my life, and I was walking the dog. It was 9 o'clock at night or something, and we live on a dirt road and trees and everything, coyotes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm walking down the road, and I just was really thinking it would be helpful to have my dad share some thoughts on this particular subject. And so I was asking for help as I walked, and instantly I heard his voice, and he was a funny guy too. He could be very funny. And I saw him in my mind's eye holding out like a bullhorn, but using his hands. And he said, the answer is here and you are it, meaning, and then he smiled and laughed, which was a phrase that he would say sometimes to people,
oh my God.
Because people would feel disempowered. And, but he's like, no, the answer is here and we are all it. The answer exists right now. There's not a problem that doesn't have a solution, and wow. when we tune in.
What a dad. Wow.
and we move to a higher frequency band, we can find the answers. And so no matter where we are in our life, no matter how dismal it may look, there is an answer, there is a solution, and go within, let go. And sometimes the letting go is the biggest thing that I found, our whole family found in the healing process. Is like, sometimes, I might encounter like, an injury. We rode dirt bikes and raised South American ostriches and rode horses and all that. So we had a very active lifestyle. So, occasionally we would, seemingly get hurt, and we would do prayerful work about it. And sometimes you would be praying, and the solution, the physical manifestation wouldn't be yielding. In fact, it might even be seemingly getting worse. And you'd be like, oh, what on earth? I thought I did all the work. But then we realized that one of the things to do is, after you do your work and you hold a clear thought, is just let go. Don't monitor the rash or the, the cut or the whatever, just let go. And that letting go stage allows the universe to come in. It's like, okay, good. This this creation of mine, this creator of mine is no longer meddling. I can go in and just harmonize the situation. And so one time I drilled through this wrist with a drill bit by accident, and it hit the main, blood vessel there. And it was
You drilled through your arm.
Yeah, I was.
Oh my God.
On my wrist. Yeah, I had a plate shear, and I was trying to drill a hole through it, and I didn't realize it was a hardened steel handle, and the bit slipped and broke, and went right in as the drill was going. And sorry to be graphic, but there were metal chips in there and all that. And so my dad, at the time I was working at my shop in Western Massachusetts, and my dad came down and bandaged me up and cleaned it all out and stuff. My hand turned purple. I couldn't move my fingers. And we just started praying about it and just holding a clear thought. And the way I like to pray is you start with perfection. So don't go look at the hand and try to get that visualization of incoherence. If you need a physical representation, look at your other hand, which is expressing, perfection. Okay, so hold a clear view of who you are. And if you start to view yourself as an idea form, a thought form, thoughts can be modified, they can be changed, they can be let go of, they can be improved upon. So start to look at yourself as a collection of ideas and coherent, loving ideas. And also get rid of this idea of accident, damaged goods, anything that, comes in that thought, just start throwing it out and just hold as best you can, to how the creator would see you, which is perfect, made in his image and likeness. And so that's what we did. And at first it was a big wrap around, bandage around, fingers were turning purple. It was, presenting itself as a scary picture. I just kept looking away. I'm pretty sure it was within an hour. There was no main bandage, just a tiny little band-aid, just a regular band-aid. And then I want to say it was like 3, 4, 5 hours after that, there was not even a band-aid on. And I'm someone that doesn't like to cover it up and likes, to have the body have air and oxygen flow and stuff. And I'm not worried about viruses coming into the cut and stuff like that if I'm holding a clearer thought, so that's just dependent on person to person. But anyways, there wasn't even a single bandage on, and I kept it clean and all that kind of stuff. But there was a scar sensitivity. I used to wear a watch, and months later, I still couldn't wear a watch. A year later, still couldn't wear a watch. If someone grabbed me on the wrist here, there was a scar sensitivity that would wig me out. But everything else healed beautifully except for that, which was really a program, a trauma, a memory. And then one time I was going through the flow technology, our original flow unit, and my father was the operator at the time running through the session. And after my session, I get out and he said, how's your wrist? And we hadn't talked about my wrist for months or at least weeks. And, it was not really a focus. And he goes, how's your wrist? And I went like this, and I was just about to say, oh, it's still, sensitive. And I did this, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's gone. And it had totally released. And there was no scar sensitivity. And he intuited it, that there was a healing process going on. I wasn't going into the session trying to even work on that. It wasn't even on my thought or in my mind. But here I was in a coherent space. Your higher self knows and has a different order of things that you need to work through. We go in with our list, so to speak. Oh, I want more, money, or I want more.
In the sequence.
I want this blemish on my, forehead to be removed or whatever. And, your higher self is like, no, it's something internal. It's this instead. It's the leg issue, whatever. And you release that, and you start to free yourself. And it's like you start to rewrite history. And I think, I've never been fascinated with history. My dad was actually very interested in history, but I've never really been fascinated with history. And I think, the reason being is it must have been on some level it was an indicator to myself, don't be attached to your own personal history. We can learn from the past and so forth, but don't be attached to your personal history. And my dad used to say that aging is really the accumulation of unresolved problems and issues. And so as we start to release these, we start to rejuvenate, whether it be our thought, and sometimes it's manifested externally as well. But just start to be less attached to who you think you are and the program and the history, the awards, the wounds, start to just let those soften. And when we do that, it opens the door to, infinite opportunities and possibilities,
Well, Joseph Campbell famously said, you have to be willing to let go of the life you planned in order to allow the life waiting for you. And, what I hear you saying is, release, your identity, your self-identity sometimes, like who you think you are or should be or have been. And just, I hear, I like that word malleable that you mentioned with your father it's critical to always have that beginner's mind, always have that open mind, keeping it open to growth and a new understanding, expanding and an evolution. The beginning and the end is when we think we know, right?
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. Such amazing advice. So much there. I can't wait to go back and re-listen to this show for myself, taking notes. Ross, this has been truly amazing. Just, if I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. Just so deeply grateful for all your contribution to the world. Is there anything else on your heart you want to share that you feel a need to share with our audience before we close today?
Yeah, I think just going back to that childlike mindset, I think is so important. And just wanted to share a little something where, as a parent, or even if you don't have kids, you might observe this. If you have like a 2-year-old running around and trips and falls and hits its head on a table or something, a lot of times the parents are like, oh my gosh, that looks intense. The first thing the young child does is it looks at its mom. If mom's not there, it looks at its dad. How am I supposed to react in this situation? If the mom is like, oh my gosh, you poor dear thing, that looked like a hard hit, baby, small child just bursts out into tears, and the healing process for whatever they just went through is a lot longer and harder. The parent that picks them up, there's still maybe a few tears, maybe even not, and picks them up and redirects that energy out of really love for their child, because they're seeing like, oh, you're at a stop sign and you can either turn right or you can turn left. One way is, your damaged goods, you were just harmed. Another way is literally shifting into reality where that wasn't that big of a deal, or maybe it didn't even happen at all. And if it didn't happen at all, that's an instantaneous healing where we shifted realities. But what I love is, children are such a great example of that, especially, young ones when they're early on learning about their development. They're looking for their program. And so they look to mom like, should I be crying? Is this a big deal? If mom is, cool as a cucumber and she's just, seeing her child as, not damaged goods, the child sometimes doesn't even cry, sometimes doesn't get, the bruise and so forth. Or if they do, it's very mild compared to the parent, that just as lovingly, they love their children just as much, is going over and trying to make a big deal out of something. So I think, we can learn a lot, from, children, even our pets. You step on your dog's leg by accident, it's forgiven you moments later. It's not holding a grudge, it realized that it was an accident, and so we can learn a lot about letting go, from, small children and animals, and being, in that frequency band, and starting to realize that as we shift into that, we become into that the play state, and and we can start to really change our lives. So I just wanted to sort of, share that little bit too, is you are a beautiful child of the universe, no matter how old or young you think you are. The universe sees you as a beautiful, loving expression.
Wow. Yes, I love it. That is the perfect place to wrap. I mean, what could be more beautiful and important and just soul-filling than to really drink that in, that concept, You're a beautiful expression, a child of the divine, and you are deeply, deeply loved, more than you'll ever know. Yeah, it's just how comforting. And, I say a lot that children and animals are our greatest teachers, like you said, when they're tired, they sleep. When they're not when they're not hungry anymore, they stop eating. They don't emotionally eat. When something hurts, they cry, and then they get over it. And then, or like a kid steals their toy and they smack them on the head and they fight, but then they make up, and the next thing you know, they're hugging. They don't hold on, and animals the same way. So, I think it takes a lot of humility to be a conscious, evolving adult, because we have to remember we're still learning. The saying, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right? It's just a constant lesson. Ross Newkirk, thank you so much. How can people find you? And I think we have a special offer, right? Don't we?
Yes, we sure do.
All righty.
Thank you so much. Been such a pleasure to be on the show here.
Mm-hmm.
They can find out about Conscious Technologies LLC through your website. I know you're going to have links, there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're near Rhode Island and you want to experience these technologies, you can experience a lot of them at the Awaken Wholeness Center. .com, which is in Rhode Island, and my wife runs that center. And then we have VogelCutCrystals.com, which is where we offer our crystals. And we also have Lightfield Foundation.com, which is our nonprofit in the Berkshires. And we're going to be offering your listeners 10% off if they enter FitAmyTV 10. Upon checkout, or they click your link on your website. Either one will get you 10% off. So thank you so much. This has been a great pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for that generous offer, because we're trying to incentivize everybody to try out these products and experience the difference, why they are truly effective and special. And I really hope that helps give people the little push, like, oh, wow, I can save a couple bucks. Okay, I'm going to try it, and buy them for people you love. It's an investment, it's a wise investment you'll have for years and years and years. And it'll only give you returns, in the end. No side effects except maybe happiness. So thank you so much again, Ross. And again, everybody, everything he just mentioned will be in the show notes, how you can find Ross, how you can find his amazing products, where you can get your discount, all that stuff. And like he said, if you're in Rhode Island, check it out and experience. There's a couple more products I think I'm going to have to check out too, like the mat and some of the other things. I'll probably have to get some more crystals. Oh my goodness, it's just... I'm going to have a nice Christmas list for my family. I'm just going to send them to you. So everyone, thank you so much for listening and watching. And if you want to support me and support the show, you know what to do. Subscribe, please leave a review, and share it with a friend. And I really, really appreciate it, because, hey, let's do this thing. Okay, let's be more conscious, and let's be happier and more loving and more coherent. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Amy. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye, everybody. See you next time.
Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier, and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, FITAMYTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also FitAmyTV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.